lied to you earlier about my daughter. She's not 3. She turned 18 about a month ago. So I decided to finally get in touch, now that I could. She was actually happy to hear from me. She even wanted to meet, so I sent her a ticket. I don't even know what she looks like. She was supposed to fly out this afternoon. She's not coming. And I don't blame her for not ever wanting to see me again.
She doesn't want to see you today, but you don't know what's going on inside that girl's head. Listen, sweetie, you mustn't discredit the marvelous thing you did. You opened the door. Now, whether your daughter steps in or not, that's out of your hands.
I never should have left. She needed a father. I should have stayed and made it work.
Why? So you could be more miserable than you already are? Oh, baby. We are not so different after all, you and me. I did the same thing my entire life that you're doing right now. I blame myself. I carried a burden of guilt with me for years, until one day I realized it was never mine to cart. You see, my mama died of blood poisoning just 3 weeks after giving birth to me. I was christened right beside her open casket. Hell of a way to start one's life. And Daddy, oh, he took to the bottle soon afterwards. How that man resented me. I was just a little girl. I didn't know any better, but still, he blamed me. He blamed me for taking away his beautiful bride. And before long, I blamed me. So I became a sinner. Daddy told me I was. Had my first cigarette when I was 9. Started drinking by the time I was 12, and then the drugs, the sex, the whole lot of it, all done in an effort to ease the pain, until that becomes the pain. And by the time I figure all this shit out, I'm a 63-year-old woman, 6 months away from death. Set yourself free, Danny boy. If nothing else you need, no, you must live the life you want to live.
I can't.
Then boo fucking who, you little shit?
Oh, you have no idea what I would be up against.
Don't I?
People just don't accept that kind of thing in this day and age.
People are stupid, cruel even. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't like the way you dress, or the way you act, or the way you think. And who gives a flying fuck? Why should you live your life by their rules?
You're hardly one to lecture me. You don't exactly have the best track record when it comes to relationships.
Because I never wanted to be tied down. I use men like they use me. No harm, no foul.
What about love?
Overrated. I'd much rather be in lust than in love.
Even if it means dying alone?
We all die alone, baby. Did you ever read an obituary that suggested otherwise?
You know what I mean.
I have never needed anything from anyone. And when I strike out at something like love, I keep my cleats on, step back up to the plate. May not hit a home run, but at least I let a stranger get to second or third.
I can't do that. I wasn't brought up that way.
Darling, you're the daughter of a congressman, speaker of the House, the granddaughter of a United States senator. Now, no one had a better upbringing than me. And just look how deliciously disgraceful I turned out.
You have no respect for anything.
Baby, if I had my life to live over again, I'd make the same damn mistakes, only sooner. back to work.
Answer the question.
Steve, dear, you off
Now
there?
move while they play. Now come on, if you had to do it all over again, you can't possibly tell me you do it exactly the same way.
I'm telling you, I don't wish to discuss this.
So you do have regrets.
I regret everything. I repent for nothing.
Sounds like a big bag of bullshit, if you ask me.
I didn't ask you.
Look, I told you why. Now you tell me how. How does someone go from being on the top of the world to the bottom of the barrel in the blink of an eye?
I don't believe I care for your
No,
tone.
of course you don't. But what I'm suggesting would involve living in reality, something you and do, cigarettes, and your suitcase is full of functioning narcotics we know nothing about.
I happen to be famous.
Yes, but for what? Swearing like a sailor? Greeting your guests at the door stark naked?
Yes, that's me. That is Tallulah.
And you're proud of that.
What I'm very proud of, darling, is always having lived my life as Tallulah Bankhead. The rebel, the heretic, the woman who was bold enough to tell people the way it was, even if it was demonized for every word.
And sabotage her career in the process.
Listen, Buster, I played Jezebel.
Which, during rehearsals, you had to be taken away in an ambulance due to infections from your promiscuity.
Sabina, in Skin of Our Teeth. 359 performances.
You had the entire cast would show up 5 minutes before curtain in order to save themselves from your outrageous tantrums.
The little foxes.
Lillian Hellman stopped speaking to you 20 years ago.
And I was brilliant in life, folks.
Yes, you were. Damn shame you were so hated by then Hollywood wouldn't even nominate you for an Oscar. And don't even get me started on Streetcar, or as Tennessee Williams put it, the first time a drag queen ever played Blanche DuBois.
Tenny is a drunk. That old sister doesn't know what she's saying half the time. There's all those others, those manicured men, those theater queens, who claimed to have discovered Tallulah, but then ripped a limb from bloody
You
limb.
have no one to blame for that but yourself.
At least I had the balls to be who I was, instead of taking some hostage of a wife in order to prove some ridiculous lie to whomever was bored enough to care.
No, you just fucked everyone instead. It didn't matter who or where or how, as long as you didn't have to be alone with yourself and see exactly who you really were.
At least I became someone. I did something with my life, unlike you, poor little boy. All right, maybe I fucked up my life, but just my life. You took down 4, including your own.
This film is your last picture. And you want to know what? It stinks. You see, I've been editing this piece of trash for the past 3 months. And I've watched it over and over and over. And I've cut and cut and cut with the sole purpose of making you look better. Yes, you. The great Tallulah Bankhead. Oh, you remember her, don't you? She's the actress who can't remember her lines or makes up her own lines. Or says another character's lines instead of her own, or better yet, she simply says nothing because she thinks she doesn't have a line which she actually does, which, ironically, is the best part of this picture because you're not speaking. And it's me, who has to make you look good, cutting and snipping and pasting so the whole world will be fooled into thinking that Tallulah Bankhead is still the greatest actress who ever graced the silver screen. But it's all a lie. One big goddamn lie. So let's not bullshit each other because we both damn well know the truth. You stopped being an actress years ago to become a celebrity, and now you're washed up. You're a has-been and a fraud.
My dear boy, I must warn you for your own sake that this attempt of yours to humiliate me is amateurish compared with my own lifelong degradation. No one can hurt me more than I have hurt myself, so if you think you can disgrace me by anything you say, get your candy ass in line. It's already been done by me, so I'm afraid you're just wasting my time.
And you, lady, you're wasting mine.
And I'm still on the clock here.
Dee, darling. Well, yes, I believe I'm quite ready now.
So am I.
Great.
You need a line again?
Steve, dear, tell Mr. Miller I don't require his assistance.
Danny, Miss Bankhead says that
I can hear her.
Sorry.
Let's just get this over with.
So, Mrs. Patriarch, as I was telling you, the deluded rector has in literal effect closed the church to me.
Shit.
What?
I forgot to hit the record button.
That's all right, Steve, darling. I'm a professional. Let's just go again, shall we?
Fine. You ready this time?
Yes, I am.
And so, Patricia, as I was telling you, that deluded rector has in literal effect closed the church to me.
Steve?
It's good.
I can do better.
Oh, we don't need
I
you.
said I can do better.
Fine.
And so, Patricia, as I was telling you, that deluded rector has in literal effect closed the church to me.
Steve?
Damn,
What?
that was better.
Lovely. Now then, gentlemen, if there is nothing further, I believe it's time I take my leave.
Wait a minute, why didn't you just say the line that way in the first place?
Because if I did, Johnny, we wouldn't have gotten to know each other, no, would we? Besides, neither one of us is in a big hurry to go anywhere.
I am. I promised my kids to take them to the Dodger game and Koufax is pitching, so can I leave, please?
Sure, we're all done here.
See you, Danny. Good night, Miss Bankett. Good night, Tallulah.
Take care, Steve, darling.
I saw you in the streetcar at the Coconut Grove Playhouse. And I saw the Little Foxes. And I snuck into the premieres of Stage Door Canteen and Lifeboat. In fact, I've seen you in practically everything you've ever done. How I used to watch you. I'd actually tremble when I left the theater because you were so extraordinary. Why did you piss all over that production of Streetcar? You deliberately gave a bad performance. Throwing lines out to the audience, camping it up for your fans? You know that's not the way that role should be played.
Yes, darling, yes. I also know that's what they all wanted to see. Show business, baby. We always give the people what they want.
Suppose you didn't have to anymore.
Hmm?
Show me.
What?
Your Blanche Dubois.
Oh, no, darling. I haven't played that role in years.
Show me. Tallulah, please. I promise I won't laugh at you.
This man. This man is a gentleman, and he respects me. What he wants is my companionship. Having great wealth sometimes makes people lonely. A cultivated woman, a woman of intelligence and breeding, can enrich
let me apologize.
No, I won't. You said what you had to say. Despite the brutality of it, I respect your honesty. If you were right about everything you said. What, baby?
Nothing. Everything. I've missed so much.
Then do something about it. Take a trip, take a drink, take a lover, anything, at least make a choice. Choose something other than this life you have created for yourself. You don't have to be this unhappy. There's always going to be pain in life, baby. But suffering, that one is optional.
I thought I was invited to your party tonight.
Yes, and then I uninvited you.
Well, I would like to be re-invited.
Oh, my dear, sweet boy. There is no party. Hasn't been one for some time. People just don't come around the way they used to.
I could. Tonight, maybe now, even.
Spare me your pity.
Only if you spare me yours. Come on now, what do you say? A quick drink wouldn't exactly kill me.
Honey, the way I pour, don't be so sure.
So it's a date?
And apparently another sexless night.
Turn now to a show about a woman who's sure to have been the subject of a fair share of gossip in her own day, Tallulah Bankhead. Valerie Harper is starring as the colorful, controversial, and celebrated performer in Matthew Lombardo's new play, Looped. We recently got the chance to catch up with the Looped company shortly before they began previews at the Lyceum Theater. The play is based on a real event, a looping or re-recording session for what was to have been Bankhead's final film, Die, Die, My Darling.
Well, it was her last picture. She had not done a movie in 20 years, and it was called Die, Die, My Darling, one of those like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The actual looping session, she spent many hours and there were many lines. But Matthew Lombardo, with a playwright's genius, said it will be far more funny, amusing, and impactful if it's one line. And that she, because she's imbibing in all kinds of mood alteration, is unable to complete that line, and it takes an entire day.
Talk to me a little bit about what inspired you to write Looped. You know, I was in tech rehearsals for my last play, Tea at 5, at the Promenade Theater, and someone came up to me and said, did you ever think of writing a play about Tallulah Bankhead? And having just spent the last 5 years of my life writing about Katharine Hepburn, the last thing I wanted to do was write another play about another famous actress. But they told me about the story that happened in 1965, where Tallulah Bankhead walked into a recording studio and needed to loop a few lines from her final film, Die, Die, My Darling. Well, someone had a copy of that tape. But there was a couple interesting things that were happening within that. She showed up drunk. She was coked up out of her mind, very belligerent. She could not get the line. And I listened to the tape and I thought, this is a very, very funny idea for a play. So I started working on it. But I thought the only way it's really going to work is if I created a couple other characters. So I took Tallulah Bankhead and I threw her in a room with a character that was completely opposite from her. Throw them in for 2 hours, see what happens.
And opening night for Looped is set for March.
Four-time Emmy Award winner Valerie Harper is returning to Broadway as celebrated actress Tallulah Bankhead in Matthew Lombardo's new comedy Looped, directed by Rob Ruggiero, which is gearing up for a March 14th opening at the Lyceum Theater. Joining Miss Harper is Brian Hutchison and Michael Mulheron. We dropped by the rehearsal room to find out about this outrageous new comedy.
A friend of mine came up to me about 5 years ago and he said, did you ever think of writing a play about Tallulah Bankhead? And having just finished the Katharine Hepburn project, Tea at 5, I was not interested in doing another play about another famous actress. But he told me that there was this incident in 1965 where an inebriated Tallulah Bankhead came into a recording studio to loop one line from her final film, Die, Die, My Darling. And the line was, and so, Patricia, as I was telling you, that deluded rector has in literal effect closed the church to me. Well, after, trying and trying and trying, she was drunk, she was coked up, she couldn't get the line, and I thought, what a great idea for a play. So I started to develop it, and I came up with this concept and worked on Looped.
Well, Matthew and I, the playwright, are both from Connecticut, and actually I read the play before there was even a director attached, and we talked about it, and before Valerie was attached. We had a great connection, and then about a year and a half ago, Pasadena Playhouse was doing the world premiere, and Matthew asked me to do it, and we asked Valerie to do it, and a year and a half later, here we are. We had the show, actually, this is the fourth stop in its development. We did the world premiere at Pasadena, we did a production in West Palm Beach last winter, we did a production at Arena Stage last summer, and in all these stops, we just continued to make the story clearer, develop the play. It started out of the gate, so strong. It was a really funny comedy. Everybody really responded to it. But we're all workhorses, and I think it's so much better now even than when it started. It's just, I like to say there's a lot of cake with the frosting.
I play Danny Miller. I play a film editor on Tallulah's last film, Die, Die, My Darling. And as it turns out, she has to re-record one line of dialogue for the film, and no one else is around on this particular day. It's the last thing that needs to be done in the film. And so I'm the film editor who has to act as the sound editor for the day. So not used to dealing with sound and not used to dealing with talent. So I'm used to kind of working in a room by myself. And so that's kind of where the play starts off and what the framework is.
The line sounds like not the easiest line of dialogue ever written. Tell us a bit about the line.
The line is almost the line that ends up in the actual film. It's actually a little different. I think the line in the film actually goes on longer. The line that we're using is, and so, Patricia, as I was telling you, that deluded rector has in literal effect closed the church to me. And she almost gets there a few times, but throughout the evening it just never quite gets there for a lot of different reasons, mostly because she just can't quite get it.
I play Steve, the sound engineer for the looping session, which is where you're re-recording dialogue for a film or a television show. And I'm in the booth up about 15 feet above everybody else with Brian Hutchison's character, Danny, at the beginning, and he's rather upset that he has to re-record this dialogue. They've kind of stuck it with him. And then in comes Hurricane Hannah. Tallulah comes flying in the room. And my character, Steve, kind of is charmed by her and eventually works in, a friendly relationship with her, whereas she and Danny are at odds and butting heads so far into the play. But then as the play progresses, it's not just about Tallulah being Tallulah, the drinking, the drug usage, the language, the unbelievably funny, crass things she can say. But you find out more and more about Danny, Brian's character, and he reveals more and more of himself. It also she starts to reveal more and more of herself. And the two of them really do come together by the end of it, and I sit up in the booth as the marionette plucking strings and watching what's going on.
It's a hilarious comedy, and it's based on an actual event of a looping session, which means recording a line that has been besmirched by some other sound in a movie. They can't leave it in because a cat is yowling, or a stagehand dropped something, or the plane went overhead. So the actor goes into the studio after the movie's completed, looks at their image, and dubs themselves. Well, the person is Tallulah Bankhead. And she goes in, and the poor young man, Danny Miller, is a film editor, and he gets roped into looping this line with her, and he can't get it. And Steve, the old-timer, wonderful, taciturn techie up in the booth, says, we got to go again. She's not getting it. I mean, that is what occurs. And then because this very armored, uptight young man with several secrets meets this, volcanic, unstoppable force of Tallulah Bankhead, a wonderful play emerges, and you get a human connection and people trying to figure each other out and demanding stuff of each other, and it laughs throughout, and it has a very wonderful upper ending. So people that come will leave feeling better than when they came in, I think, because laughter is healing.
Now, you just characterize her as a volcanic character. How do you play a volcanic character?
Well, I said that because that's an easy way to say it quickly. It's just that she's an extravagant, you get her voice pattern, her sound, the way she moves, and then all the things that are the truth about the play, what condition she's in, how, like for instance, my director, Rob Ruggiero, will say she's not real drunk at the top, she's tipsy. She's maybe had one drink, she's maybe had one drink or one snort of cocaine, when she comes in. And then from there, it kind of goes wild. But the challenge is I'm not making her an impression of Tallulah. This really is this actress at her age, the end of her career, close to the end of her life, just still getting through, and where's the party, boys? I mean, she's a really wonderful character to play. And you just build a character, bit by bit. And we've done 3 productions, so I kind of know we've got really solid audience reaction, so we kind of know what's there. And then for Broadway, of course, we've gone back to the drawing board, improved the script, tightened it, cast new people. Wonderful. These 2 new actors are absolutely phenomenal, so we're lucky to have.
Last Sunday night, Looped made its debut at the Lyceum Theater. In this play, Valerie Harper, a 4-time Emmy winner for the role that made her a household name, Rhoda Morgenstern, is now taking on the role of Tallulah Bankhead. This new work by Matthew Lombardo focuses on a looping or re-recording session in 1965 for what was to be Bankhead's final film, Die, Die, My Darling. Our Frank DeLella spoke to Harper at the opening night party about her preparation for the role. Check out the famous fans who surprise Harper mid-interview.
I have a tape of this actual looping, 45 minutes of it. And of course, she looped many lines. She didn't loop just one line. That's Matthew Lombardo's genius, to take the idea of a looping session and create Danny Miller, this young man who's uptight, meeting this force of nature, larger than life, fantastic star. And but I listened to the tapes, which are great because they're better than watching her in a performance, because she's not performing. She's living her life. She's yelling at the director, or talking to a young assistant, asking him to hand her purse. Hand me my lipstick, darling. It's in there. And so I hear her living, and that's been very good.
Is this Valerie Harper?
Oh, Ron.
Hold on a second. Did you ever meet
Valerie
Harper?
Oh my God. And Joel Gray and Ron Rifkin.
Wait a minute.
My
Hold
2
on.
dolls.
You're so wonderful.
Thank you.
We
Did you
loved
like it?
you.
No schmacking?
No.
No. These
Valerie
are
and
the
my
director.
wife were roommates when they were 17.
That's right.
They were both in Little Abner together.
Down the street at the St. James Theater.
This is
We
true.
did Little Abner. Iva Rifkin, well, it was Iva March at the time, and Valerie Harper dancing away in a Michael Kidd, very strenuous show. And I met this guy when he was understudying
his
this guy
understudy.
in Come Blow Your Horn.
And you were in
And that
Carnival?
was
No, you
No.
were in Subways.
Subways.
Right.
Yeah,
Iva
yeah.
was in Carnival.
That's right. Iva was in Carnival. You remember?
This is
Don't you want to know all this?
This is show business history.
Show business history. It is a reunion. And
Bye,
this
Lovey.
guy flew out. Oh, God bless you, coming all this way.
Anyway, we're her great friends and fans.
Thank you so
And
much.
come see her.
Come and laugh.
And stay tuned later in our show for Roma Torre's reviews of both Looped and All About Me.
And now another giant ego, Tallulah Bankhead, was quite a piece of work, as witty as she was decadent. And both sides of the actress's extravagant persona are on ample display in Looped, a small play that offers some very big laughs, a gargantuan performance, and little else.
You get lost in Manhattan, you don't deserve to be found.
It takes place near the end of Bankhead's life in 1965. She's been asked to go to a soundstage in Hollywood and loop or re-record one line from a film in which she was featured. A simple task for most turns into a Sisyphean nightmare for the sound editor in charge of getting it done. Bankhead had by this point in her life established herself as an undisciplined lush, hooked on booze, drugs, and sex, who seemed to be in a perpetual state of inebriation, hence the fittingly titled Looped. And so what should have taken minutes drags into hours as the sound editor and a colleague frustratingly wait for Ms. Bankhead to get her act together. And what an act it is. Valerie Harper, delivering a no-holds-barred performance, seems to be having a blast, flinging off-color zingers and put-downs with the greatest of ease. In her diva get-up, designed to period perfection by William Ivey Long, she channels Bankhead to the hilt. At times it seems she's overdoing it, though Bankhead apparently was just that outrageous. Act 1 is all laughs, and pity it's not a one-act because Act 2 attempts to inject pathos, and that's where the play runs into trouble. From a wildly enjoyable comedy, it turns into a clunky melodrama. The other two performers have largely thankless roles, especially the always reliable Michael Mulheron, who's relegated to a glassed-in sound booth most of the time. Brian Hutchison does a fine job as the beleaguered sound editor, but it's a part that forces him to do little more than play foil to the diva.
What are those?
Breath mints.
In a prescription bottle.
Codeine happens to be leading the fight against halitosis.
Looped aspires to be something more than what it is, a minor comedy about an incredibly self-indulgent celebrity. Playwright Matthew Lombardo nails the humor, if only he hadn't tried to sober it up.
But let's start things off with Emmy Award winner Valerie Harper, who has returned to Broadway as celebrated actress Tallulah Bankhead in Matthew Lombardo's new comedy Looped at the Lyceum Theater. It's directed by Rob Ruggiero and co-stars Brian Hutchison and Michael Mulheron. Looped tells the story of Tallulah Bankhead, the internationally celebrated actress being called into a sound studio to re-record or loop one line of dialogue from what would be her last film, Die, Die, My Darling. Given her inebriated state and inability to loop the line properly, what ensues is an uproarious showdown between her uptight film editor and the outrageous legend.
I once gave my dog a sip of scotch. He had to lick his ass just to get the taste out of his mouth. But oh, Crawford was a lousy lay. She kept getting out of bed to beat the children. But oh, he was dreadful in bed. Horrible. Oh, I've had vaccination shots that stayed inside me longer.
I play Steve, the sound engineer for the looping session, and when they had done the show out of town, they had the actor playing Steve. I'm 15 feet in the air in a sound booth, and they had it fairly dark, so he wasn't really seen. And when Jay Binder, the casting director, called me about this to come in and meet the director and meet Val and meet the author and the producers, a couple of the producers I know, Chase I've known for years, they said, you'll be sitting on a stool the entire time. And Jay knew I had just had both hips replaced about 5 weeks before that. So I said, I can do that. That'd be great. So then when I came in and said, yeah. And then they said, yeah, well, we're going to give you more light. We want to see you. So
It's great because you have all those great singers in the beginning of the show, and then you're sort of off for a while, then you come back.
The tap number at the top of Act 2, I had to work on because you're still in musical theater world, aren't we?
Tell me what you admire about working with Valerie Harper and with the gentleman next to us, Brian Hutchison.
Brian and Val, the best thing is you get in a room with an actor like Brian, and I observe so much of the play and observe so much in rehearsal because I'm oftentimes off. Watching Brian work is great. He's a talented actor. But then you watch Val, and not only the talent, the reputation, then she's the hardest working person in the room every day. It's amazing. I did Deuce a couple of seasons ago with two heroines of mine, Angela Lansbury and Marion Seldes, and I got to watch them every night. It was like I used to say it was like going to master class, and this one is another one, watching her every night because she's stupendous.
You know, it's so interesting, and the beautiful thing about regional theaters is I didn't know what I know today that I didn't know in Washington, that I didn't know in West Palm, that I didn't know when we had the world premiere in Pasadena Playhouse. You learn a little something in every city along the way. So that's why with every world premiere, I always like to do about 3 cities before bringing it in, because you learn, the play tells you exactly what it wants to be. Jerry Schoenfeld said something really interesting to us. He said, always listen to the play because the play will tell you what it needs and when it's ready to come into New York. Don't force it. The play will tell you when it's ready.
Talk about your leading lady.
Oh, God. Well, I don't have enough adjectives to describe Valerie Harper. She is the most gracious and loving and compassionate and understanding and patient woman. It's been a joy to work with her, and she's just amazing in this role. And I really hope that people recognize her because she deserves all of the accolades.
What can you say? You know, I always say I grew up watching Rhoda as a teenager, and I would wish that my best friend was Rhoda Morgenstern. All I can tell you is it's even better to have Valerie Harper as your best friend. She is the consummate professional. She is so hardworking. She is harder than any one of us. She never wants to stop tweaking and fixing. She's so kind and so generous to all of her colleagues. She's so undiva, I can't tell you, the opposite of Tallulah. She'll try anything I ask, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful collaboration, and I'm so proud of her. And I think what she brings to Tallulah is something extraordinarily special, something that many actors perhaps couldn't, because she doesn't do a send-up. It was really important to her, but you get, it's so Tallulah, but she comes at it loving who Tallulah is and wants to, you know, she can be wild and vulgar and volatile, but she does it with such integrity and this is who I am, and with such pride, I think.
Because I was going to say, she doesn't do a send-up.
Right?
She becomes Tallulah Bankhead.
She really does. And we've watched tapes, videos and tapes and read books and looked at things. And if you saw some of the behavior and the hair and all that stuff, we really, really did a lot of work, and she did so much. And you know, we just didn't want to do a send-up. It's very easy to do. I do a send-up. Matthew does a send-up. Darling, we can do it. But Valerie lives her. Valerie lives her, and I'm glad that you saw that. I hope everyone sees that. It's very special.
So how about I make this a little easier for you, huh? Suppose we come at this in a completely different way.
Marvelous.
How about I give you a tap?
A what?
A tap.
A tap.
Instead of the beeps.
No more beeps.
No more beeps, I'll tap you instead.
Perfect.
Great. That's great. Here we go now.